You ever notice how some people just can't handle it when you stop reacting the way they want you to? It's almost like the moment you stop feeding into their drama, they start scrambling for control. Toxic people thrive on reaction, attention, and chaos, but there's one simple shift that completely disarms them. And when you do it, you'll see who's really in control of your peace, you or them. Toxic people have one primary fuel source: your reaction. They feed off emotional chaos the way a fire feeds off oxygen, and the moment you take that away, they suffocate. When someone tries to provoke you, criticize you, or twist your words, their goal isn't always to be right, it's to get you rattled, to pull you into a place where they feel powerful and you feel defensive. The second you raise your voice, over-explain, or try to prove your worth, they've already won the game. But when you stay calm, truly calm, you flip the dynamic completely. You tell them without saying a word that they no longer control your emotions, your tone, or your peace. That kind of calm isn't weakness, it's dominance through composure. And toxic people can't stand it because it exposes their lack of control. They'll test you harder when you start showing emotional restraint. Suddenly, they'll use sharper words, push deeper into your insecurities, or act more dramatic than usual because your calmness threatens the power they thought they had over you. But that's exactly the moment to hold the line, to breathe, to pause, and to respond with clarity instead of emotion. It's not about pretending their behavior doesn't affect you, it's about refusing to let their behavior dictate your response. When you stay grounded in your calm, they get frustrated because their usual tactics stop working. They can't get you to snap, they can't make you defend, and they can't manipulate your energy. What they're really seeing is a version of you they can't control anymore, and that terrifies them. The truth is, calmness is a boundary disguised as silence. It's your way of saying, you don't get to pull me into your storm. Every time you stay composed, you reclaim emotional space that used to belong to them. That's why toxic people accuse calm individuals of being cold, distant, or uncaring. It's projection. They're not actually upset that you're calm. They're upset that you're no longer providing the emotional chaos they need to validate themselves. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding their need to feel significant. Your peace exposes their dependence on dysfunction, and they hate seeing that reflection of themselves. This isn't easy, especially if you've spent years being reactive, people-pleasing, or over-explaining. Calmness takes discipline. It's a practice of emotional maturity. It means choosing logic over impulse, understanding that your energy is a currency and not everyone deserves to spend it. Sometimes it means walking away mid-argument, not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing peace over pointless confrontation. The more you master that control, the more they'll try to provoke you, but eventually they'll realize they can't win a game you're no longer playing. When you stay calm, you gain something toxic people will never understand: perspective. You begin to see through manipulation instead of reacting to it. You start to notice patterns instead of being pulled into them. You recognize that their anger isn't about you. It's about their inability to manage themselves. And the moment you see that clearly, their words lose power, their tactics lose effect, and your peace becomes untouchable. That calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally care about the right thing: your mental balance, not their opinion. So the next time someone tries to bait you into reacting, remember this: the person who stays calm always holds the power. You can't argue with silence. You can't manipulate peace. Toxic people will hate it, but your composure will always speak louder than their chaos. Boundaries are the mirror that shows toxic people who they really are, and that's why they can't stand them. The moment you start saying no to things you used to tolerate, you stop being easy to manipulate. Toxic people rely on blurred lines. They thrive in situations where your kindness can be twisted into weakness, where your empathy can be turned into obligation. But when you set boundaries, you make the rules clear, and that clarity exposes their intentions. They're not mad because you're being unfair. They're mad because you're no longer giving them unlimited access to your time, emotions, and energy. Every boundary you set becomes a wall they can't climb without revealing their real motives: control, attention, or validation. And when they can't find those things in you anymore, they start showing their frustration through anger, guilt trips, or silent treatment, all because your no feels like rejection to someone who's used to owning your yes. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about protecting your peace. They define what behavior you will and will not allow, and that alone makes toxic people deeply uncomfortable. Because boundaries require accountability, and accountability is something toxic personalities run from. When you enforce a limit, like not engaging in gossip, not answering every call, or not tolerating disrespect, you send a signal that their old methods won't work anymore. That's when they'll start saying things like, "You've changed," or "You're so distant lately," trying to guilt you back into submission. But the truth is, you haven't changed. You've grown. You're no longer giving your emotional energy away for free, and they can't handle that kind of emotional independence. When you start holding boundaries, you start seeing people's true colors. The healthy ones will respect your space, adjust, and still value your connection. The toxic ones will push harder, test you, and accuse you of being difficult. That's how you know who's really in your corner. Boundaries don't break relationships. They reveal which ones were never real to begin with. It's fascinating. The same people who loved you when you were always available suddenly act offended when you start prioritizing yourself. It's because they weren't in love with you. They were in love with your compliance. And when that compliance disappears, so does their fake affection. Enforcing boundaries takes courage because you'll face resistance at first. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always be the loudest critics when you start setting them. They'll make you question your worth, your kindness, and your decisions, not because you're wrong, but because your strength reminds them of their own lack of control. That's why staying consistent matters. It's not enough to draw the line once. You have to hold it every time they try to cross it. You don't owe long explanations, debates, or emotional justifications. A boundary doesn't need a speech. It just needs enforcement. Over time, something powerful happens. You stop feeling guilty for protecting yourself. You realize that peace isn't found in pleasing everyone. It's found in honoring yourself. The people who truly care about you will adapt to your boundaries, not attack them. And the ones who can't handle them were never meant to stay. The discomfort you feel at first turns into freedom. Freedom from manipulation, emotional exhaustion, and the constant pressure to prove your worth. You begin to trust yourself again because you know you can protect your energy. Boundaries are not walls. They're gates with locks that you control. You decide who gets access, how much, and when. Toxic people hate that because it means the control is finally out of their hands. They can't twist your emotions or use guilt as a leash anymore. You're not rude for setting limits. You're responsible for doing it. And the moment you realize that, their power over you ends, quietly, confidently, and completely. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you have against toxic people, and it drives them absolutely insane. They depend on your reactions, your explanations, your defenses, your need to be understood, because that's how they keep control. The more you talk, the more information they gather to twist, manipulate, or use against you later. But when you choose silence, you take that power away. You stop giving them access to your emotions, and suddenly they can't figure out what you're thinking or how to push your buttons. That uncertainty eats at them because they can't stand not being able to control the narrative. Toxic people crave engagement, and silence is the one thing they can't manipulate. It's not about giving them the silent treatment to punish them. It's about protecting your peace by refusing to participate in pointless chaos. When you stop explaining yourself, toxic people feel exposed. They rely on your over-explaining to make themselves look innocent and you look guilty. They'll accuse you, provoke you, and then sit back waiting for your emotional reaction to validate their behavior. But silence denies them that satisfaction. It's like holding up a mirror to their own insecurity. They start talking faster, getting louder, trying to bait you into saying something they can use because your silence forces them to face themselves, and that's something they avoid at all costs. The more you stay quiet, the more they reveal through their words and actions, because toxic people can't stand empty space. They'll fill it with the truth they were trying to hide. This kind of silence isn't weakness, it's emotional discipline. It's choosing not to attend every argument you're invited to. It's knowing that responding to manipulation is participation in manipulation. When someone twists your words, plays the victim, or tries to gaslight you into doubting your reality, silence is your shield. You don't owe anyone constant explanations for your choices, your boundaries, or your peace. Every time you resist the urge to defend yourself, you teach people that your worth isn't up for negotiation. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. That calm, quiet confidence unsettles toxic people because it means they can't pull you into their emotional storm anymore. Of course, silence can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to over-communicating or trying to fix everything. But that discomfort fades once you realize how much energy you've been wasting on people who never listened anyway. Toxic people don't want understanding, they want control. Your silence removes their stage. You stop playing the role they wrote for you in their script, and suddenly they don't know what to do. They might accuse you of being cold, heartless, or distant, but that's just projection. What they're really saying is, you're no longer reacting the way I need you to. And that's exactly the point. Silence gives you space to think instead of react. It gives you time to choose peace over impulse, to observe patterns instead of getting lost in them. You start to notice how much calmer your world becomes when you stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Not every question deserves an answer, and not every attack needs a defense. When you use silence intentionally, you stop trying to win arguments that don't matter and start winning back your emotional clarity. That's when you realize you were never losing your peace to them. You were giving it away through your words. So stay quiet when they expect chaos. Smile when they expect anger. Walk away when they expect engagement. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself, toxic people lose their grip on you completely. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And the louder their reaction becomes, the more proof you have that your calm has hit exactly where it needed to. Self-control is the one trait